Alright guys, welcome back to another episode of Crossing Swords. I'm Andrew.
And I'm Jake, and I'm going to steal the intro. You ready?
Yeah.
Knock knock.
Who's there?
Controversy, motherfucker. That's right. It's Crossing Swords, and it's time to talk about jokes.
Yes. We're going to discuss today, particularly with the Joe Brand situation that recently happened, about jokes and if they go too far, whether we think the criticism is fair.
Yeah, absolutely, and when's a joke, when's it offensive,
yeah.
Should we stop making jokes, all those questions we're going to try and
answer. Or are
answer.
people just being little bitches?
Well, wait to the end and find out what we think.
Yeah.
So where do you want to start
with?
Well,
we'll start with Joe Brand then. Obviously she made a joke about instead of throwing milkshakes over Nigel Farage, let's throw battery acid.
Yeah, the thing was that Nigel Farage was walking along the street and someone jumped out and threw a milkshake at him.
Yeah.
And Joe Brand suggested that rather than milkshake, it should probably be acid.
Yeah.
Now, then a lot of people took offence at that, saying that a lot of victims of acid attack that would find that really insensitive.
Yeah.
But I don't think anyone would ever genuinely suggest that you should replace anything with acid. You should never be throwing acid on people. It's a joke.
Yeah.
And she's a comedian. Her whole job is to tell jokes.
And she's always been quite a harsh comedianess as well. She's always been quite on the line.
The only difference is this is the kind of stuff she'd usually say about herself, with herself being the target of the joke.
Yeah.
And people don't take offence because it's just saying about her.
Yeah.
But then the police had to get involved because Nigel Farage took it as a threat.
Yeah.
And the brilliant thing about Farage saying that he felt threatened, that someone had threatened to throw acid over him, was the hypocrisy involved in it. That he said, I would never say such a thing. Twitter delivered, of course, dug back in the archives, found a time not that long ago, a couple of years ago, when he said something to the effect of, if Brexit doesn't happen soon, we're going to bear arms and we're going to go in there and make it happen.
Yeah.
To which his publicity team genuinely couldn't make this up, released a statement in the backlash of people saying, well, hang on, you did say something like that, genuinely released a statement that said it was very clear in the context of this interview that Mr. Farage was making a joke. You can't make it up.
No, you can't. And to be honest, it sort of just symbolises who Farage is as a person.
Absolutely.
Really, doesn't it?
But it does open the question.
Yeah.
Should people be offended by it? Now, I can understand completely why, as a victim of acid attack,
you might find it offensive.
You might be offended that people are willing to joke about such a thing.
Yeah.
But for me, humour is a part of the healing process of humanity.
Yeah.
We use it to get through. I've used it personally to get through some of the darkest stuff in my life.
Yeah.
And joke about it. Because that's how I cope. That's my mechanism.
I think most people are the same, I think, really. I just think people just get too sensitive and I think people are too ready to react.
And I think not to blow my load too soon and deliver my final verdict. But I think to sort of take a quote, the Fall Out Boy, the band, they released a new album once. I know this doesn't sound like it's heading towards a thing about jokes, but they released a new album once and it was a bit out there. It was a bit different.
Yeah.
And what they said in response to it was, there's no such thing as bad art, there's just the wrong audience.
Yeah.
And I hated how on point it was.
Yeah.
I think there's no such thing as a joke that shouldn't be made. It's about who you're making it to and when you're making it. And I think that's where it unfortunately comes into play with when you're making it on a public scale like Twitter.
Yeah.
You cannot time it in terms of stuff that's going on in people's lives.
Also tone as well.
You can't get the tone across, and you can't select your audience. Your audience is everyone. And once a newspaper picks it up and runs with it, it's an even bigger audience.
Yeah.
And I think that's where part of the problem lies. But I don't believe that we should stop making those jokes.
No, I think there's lines you can draw, though. I do really think there are. I think there are jokes that are too far. I mean, there was one comedian that made a joke about the Manchester bombings. I'm not going to repeat that. And you do get comedians that make their career off of being offensive, which is fine, because to a degree you know, there is an audience for that. Like, I love Jimmy Carr. Some of the stuff he comes out with is
I went
absolutely
to see Jimmy Carr live.
hilarious.
One of the funniest
I'd
nights
love
of
to
my
go
life.
see him live.
Unbelievable.
I mean, he's now embroiled in his own little issue in terms of he was on an Australian talk show and they were talking about the Korean band or boy band BTS, who have just gone huge, and the phrase is they've blown up in America, they're hugely popular. And Jimmy Carr made a joke basically saying, when I heard something Korean blew up in America, I worried it was something worse.
Yeah,
maybe
right.
it is. And I actually thought that was quite funny.
I thought it was quite funny, I have to admit, and I thought, for me, this is where it comes into it again, is it's the subject of a joke versus
Well, they're
the
saying he's
material of a
racist, but I don't see
So,
where the racism
for
comes
me,
from that.
The joke that I get from it, and obviously joke, you know, a joke is art, it is personal, it is subjective. This is the joke I get from it. It's a twofold joke. One, it's a joke about the language. It's a joke about the way we use phrases like blowing up.
Yeah.
That's the joke. And the second part is the idea that people have such extreme reactions to things they shouldn't have extreme reactions to.
Yeah.
So people have extreme reactions to music and to celebrity culture and stuff. And actually, when you put it into the context of something like a global scale or a global catastrophe, or a bombing, you think, actually, it's not that bad, is it?
No.
You're overreacting. And again, that's the joke. That's what I'm getting from it.
I took it as a politically topical joke. Do you know what I mean? It was him having a dig at Kim Jong-un, and he's not having a go at those Korean lads.
Exactly.
But yeah, I think it reinforces the point that people are too sensitive, because personally, he's been called racist, and that joke had nothing to do with race.
No, all it's done is mention a race that isn't his own.
Yeah.
That's all it's done.
Yeah.
And it's got nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing to do with it. No,
And again, I was looking at the comments to the thread I saw of it, and it was all white people that were angry. So I'm like, why are you upset? You're not Korean.
So rarely the people who are the victims or the target or whatever you want to call it that are offended. It's nearly always angry white guys on Twitter.
Yeah.
Nearly always, and by guys I do mean both genders.
I think by and large, when
genders.
and this isn't saying being Korean is a disability, but when someone has something that goes against the more discerning traits, like Joe Brown being a big lady, Michael McIntyre looking Asian but he's not. You know, and I've known people that are in wheelchairs that take the piss out of themselves. You know, you don't even need to do it for. So normally, the people that are actually the end of the joke are normally the ones that are the least upset about it.
I think Fran, I can't remember her surname, and I do apologise. I imagine it's quite important, but she's the comedian with cerebral palsy.
Yes.
Who constantly makes jokes about
she's the
cerebral
one that's
palsy.
in Extras.
She was in Extras, yeah. And Ricky Gervais made a joke about him. Oh, you're a bit pissed, and she was like, "Oh, I've got cerebral palsy." And she's like, "Oh yeah, me too." And then it was like, "No, I have got." But see, there's a part of me that since I've seen her act and I've seen her in interviews and stuff, there's a part of me that believes that she could have even written that interaction, because it's
very likely
the kind of interactions that she has, and it's the kind of thing that she does is to shine a light on it, not by going, "Look how wrong you all are, shame, shame," but by taking the piss and saying, "Yeah, I walk funny, I move funny, I sound funny."
It's like if you see the film Love and Other Drugs, it's got Jake Gyllenhaal and Anne Hathaway in it, and she gets diagnosed with quite a bad disease. I believe it's something along the lines of Parkinson's or Alzheimer's, where she's going to end up with the shakes and things like that, and she's going to slowly go downhill. And she goes to like a group therapy thing for people who suffer from that disease. And one woman's on stage and she suffers from it, and she makes a joke about how her husband's never been happier because she's given the best hand job she's ever given. You know, and that's sort of the point, isn't it? People who tend to be the end of the joke are normally the least offended by the joke.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And if there was a chat on the One Show, I don't regularly watch the One Show. We could do a whole podcast on the One Show, by the way. It's one of the weirdest conceptions for a show ever. But in typical style, they went from, you know, fucking diseases and badgers in the woods or whatever to this guy who's never done comedy in his life, never done stand-up comedy. He got diagnosed with I think it was Parkinson's actually. It might have been like a mild form of Alzheimer's, but I'm pretty sure it's Parkinson's. And the first thing he did was go through a process of accepting it.
Yeah.
But the first thing he did after accepting it was, right, I'm going to go and try something I've never tried before, stand up, and I'm going to make fun of the Parkinson's.
Yeah.
And it's like, and Billy Connolly,
Yeah.
Sir Billy Connolly, to give him his respect.
Brilliant.
And mate, you know, he's a lot of jokes in recent years about the Parkinson's since being diagnosed, and it's the idea of, okay, those are individuals, and there are individuals who aren't ready to joke about it yet. But again, it comes back to when you're dealing in a public space.
Yeah.
Should you have to walk on eggshells because someone somewhere might take offence?
Well, that's it. Like, I think Ricky Gervais has said in the past, he's like, when I put a tweet out and someone sends an angry response, he would say to him, well, just unfollow me. You know, you don't have to see what I'm sending out.
You don't have to see that tweet.
You have that choice. If you're I've had people that I used to follow on Twitter not make a joke, but have said things I don't agree with. Now, instead of me slagging them off or sending an abusive message, what I do is I unfollow them.
No, I've unfollowed a lot of people, and I've unfriended a lot of people based on particularly homophobic comments and suggestions. And it's about. In fact, I will admit I've unfriended someone on Facebook because of they kept making these homophobic jokes, where the joke wasn't homophobia, the joke was being gay, and I genuinely believe that the intent was a lack of comfort around gay people.
Yeah, but there is a distinction to be made there. It depends on the actual target of the joke, which again is something Ricky Gervais has talked about. It's the intent.
He'll come up a lot in this topic.
Because he is one of the most controversial comedians out there, and he's done a huge body of work, and he regularly interacts with people online and puts things out there. But yeah, there has to be. You have to be able to discern the intent of the joke. You know, like for example with Jo Brand, she clearly was not intending to tell people to go and throw battery acid on Nigel Farage. He should have just taken it in the way it was concerned. I mean, actually, going to the root of that issue, I think people throwing milkshakes over Nigel Farage is pointless. If anything, it's counterproductive. You're giving him more space, more airtime.
Yeah,
just ignore him. If you dislike him, just ignore him. You know, it is that simple. If you're offended by him, ignore him.
It's the worst thing those kind of people can get.
We live in an age where we're all connected and you can constantly get that information. But every service where you get that information allows you the ability to not have that there. So if you don't want to see those things or experience those things, don't.
No, I quite agree.
So I think that's the root of it. If you're offended by something, don't continue to engage with it.
Quite. But am I being a hypocrite for saying we shouldn't be taking offensive jokes, we should just accept them as jokes, but then saying that I have taken offensive jokes and... Well,
of course, we're human beings, and you have to allow hypocrisy and duality to be in the room. You can't... the world isn't black and white.
You know me personally, I embrace the hypocrisy. I love it. I'm an open hypocrite.
I think people should be more relaxed in terms of jokes, but I do also believe there is a line that you cross. I don't like it when comedians go after the innocent or those who can't defend themselves. So, for example, people like Frankie Boyle, he's not my cup of tea, and I can admit that.
I think when he's just being sort of quite a natural thing, he's very funny, but he did a period for a couple of years, and I think that what you're about to mention happened in this period, where all he did was, I'm going to go out and shock, I'm going to go out and offend, and it's like, that's not funny, man. I've always said the thing about a joke, and sorry, you do your thing and I'll come in afterwards.
So basically the point I was going to make was that Frankie Boyle made a joke about Katie Price's son Harvey. I'm not going to repeat it, I'm pretty sure everyone knows.
Or you can find it.
Yeah, or you can find it, but it was a disgusting joke in my opinion. It goes against the things we're talking about in terms of if it was trying to make light of the situation or actually not mock someone who can't control who they are in the situation they're in, I'd probably have understood it, but it wasn't any of those things, it was just him being nasty.
Yeah.
And like you say, doing it for shock.
And here's the thing that I was going to mention. I went to a comedy show in New York, because I'm a jet setter, I'm a traveller, I'm cultured. And at this show, one of the acts, the headline act, and you can't see but I just did air quotation marks, the headline act came out and his whole thing was offensive. It was, I'm going to be like racist, no, not racist, but I'm going to make jokes about race, I'm going to make jokes about this and that. And it really rammed home a point that I've always felt, but I've never consciously thought about, if that makes sense. I've always known it, but I've never really consciously made an effort to do it. That if you're going to make a joke, it's as a comedian, okay? I mean, all of us, but particularly as a comedian, if you're going to make a joke, you ask yourself the questions of, is this going to offend? And if it is going to offend, do I want it to offend? Is it going to shock? Do I want it to shock? Before you ask any of those questions, whether you include a piece of material in your act, the first thing you ask, is it funny? Because this stuff wasn't funny.
No.
And he came out and he was like, you know, black ladies, am I right? Like, they're doing this, and there's like a group of black women there, and they're like, this is awkward.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't funny. But whereas I've been in the room, and okay, it's a different situation, English audience, American audience, where I've been at a comedy show in London, and I know that's more of a kind of multicultural pub, but where someone did a similar thing, they picked on an ethnic group, and I think actually it was black ladies, and there was like a group in, and it was like black ladies, and they laughed. And they were pointing at each other, they're like, that's you.
Yeah,
because it was funny. Because it was funny, first of all. You can't just be like, I'm going to put this group together and shock and offend them. Because then this is what's funny. He turned around to the audience and he said, if you don't like that, it's because you're racist. And I remember turning to the table and going, no, if we don't like that, it's because we like our jokes to be funny.
Yeah.
That's all
I think, the first step has to be, is it funny?
Absolutely.
And then, if it is offensive, is it the right kind of... Because you know what I mean?
Then you ask the kind of, how do you want to present? Like Frankie Boyle might say, I want to offend.
Also, there has to be a level of relatability to the joke.
All jokes have to be relatable.
Yeah,
all jokes have to have a basis.
But jokes like what Frankie Boyle made about Harvey, there was nothing relatable about it. There wasn't a joke there that someone who has a son with this, or a child with the same issues could go, oh yeah, 100%. That wasn't what it was.
And in terms of the relatability, I just want to mention, in fact, the another Ricky Gervais joke, and this will be the last one I do mention, where at the Golden Globes, he made a joke. Caitlyn Jenner had just only recently transitioned. I think had only recently had the final surgery.
Yeah.
And he made a joke where he said, he came out and he said, Caitlyn Jenner has been a wonderful force for trans women. She's been a great voice for the LGBT community. Hasn't done much for women drivers, because earlier in the year she'd also had a bit of a car accident, a bit of a fender bender. Now, again,
I thought that joke was hilarious.
People got really offended. You can't make a joke about trans women. The joke's not about trans women.
No.
The joke is about
a stereotype.
It's not even about women drivers. It's about the stereotype of the women drivers, and that's relatable because we all know we all know the stereotype, but B, even more importantly, we all know how ridiculous the stereotype is.
Yeah.
The idea that, oh, she's a woman now, she must be a bad driver.
Yeah.
It's like it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And that's where the humour is.
Yeah, but that's where people can't.
They can't
differentiate.
differentiate.
No, they can't differentiate.
No, they can't separate the two.
You know, especially if it's something that's up and coming like trans issues, something that's in the mainstream media's mind, or in the mind of society as a whole.
The trans thing is obviously really hot right now, and you can't make a joke about it. Yet I know, I do know some trans people. They joke about it all the time. Again, it goes back to that thing of people who are going through it.
You joke about what you know, though,
you joke
don't
to cope, and that's it. You joke about what you know. So if you don't know it, you don't see it as a joke. You just see it as offence.
Yeah.
And is that perhaps what's happening?
Yeah. Another thing that's really bothering me recently is while I was researching for this pod. Yeah, we do actually do a bit of research sometimes.
Shocking.
I'm not going to say it's in depth, but with this one in particular, I was going through pages and pages on the internet of incidents with celebrities, particularly comedians, making a joke, and it was with tweets from years ago. So if you take, for example, and these aren't even jokes, but in terms of going back into someone's past and taking bits out, Kevin Hart was supposed to host the Oscars.
Right, the homophobic.
And when he was called out, when he was announced that he was going to do it, people went down his Twitter, and this wasn't the first time it had happened, brought these tweets back out again, which actually credit to him after the first time it happened to not go back and whitewash it all, to show that, look, this is where I was, this is where I am now. You know, and he ended up, he wasn't stopped from doing the Oscars because actually they wanted him to keep doing it.
No, he stepped down.
He chose to step away because he didn't want that to overshadow the event. But my point is, and going through all of these pages, the amount of comedians that have had people, Trevor Noah, people like that, people going back into their Twitter from years ago, and picking out things that they said years ago and putting them up on it now. Now look, the thing is for me, none of us are the same people we were years ago.
God no, I'll say this, every time Facebook Memories throws up memories, all I read through and I think, I was the biggest dick on the planet.
Yeah.
I was a bigger beg than C3.
Yeah.
Honestly, I was like, text talk, I was like, haha guys, what are you guys up to today?
Yeah, and like
begging, I'm like, I hate myself, I cringe.
Yeah, like I listened to a podcast by Russell Kane, Boys Don't Cry, I love it.
Not as good as this, but it's a good podcast.
Yeah, but one of the things he said was, when discussing this sort of issue was, if we're all honest, if someone went through all of our phones, messages, and listened in on our conversations, all of our careers would be over. And this is where it annoys me, the hypocrisy of it all is, particularly when people take offence, is I guarantee every single person at some point in their life, no matter what age, how old, have said something offensive that would get them in serious trouble.
Yeah, and there's a certain clique in our group that I think when I get together with them, part of the thing is, and people,
to be as offensive as
possible. But it's all in the understanding and the acceptance of, it's the context of it is absolutely.
Well, straight away, it's relatable. We've all been through that experience together, and it's funny because we've been through that
and
experience
together. And there's a safety
together.
set up around it. It's like, this is where it goes. It's a joke. The intent,
Yeah.
whenever you're in that clique, is very, very
But
clear. It
because
is a joke. And if
we've known
someone
each other-
says, I don't find that comfortable, we take that joke out of rotation.
Yeah, we do. And it actually happened recently. I said something in a group message that I was pulled up on about, that had been used as a joke previously and I didn't realise was considered off limits. Now, to be fair to the person I directed it at, they didn't even bat an eye, because they're not the sort of person that would confront over it. But someone else who knows them probably a little bit better than I do said, well, actually, they know it bothers them. I then instantly, although it sort of bugged to me to a degree, I thought to myself, well, no, if it's what they find offensive, and they do genuinely find it offensive, then that wasn't my intention. So I actually did apologise to that person. But in our group in general, you can tell when the intent is not the usual intent, because normally it is just, we're all quite self-deprecating, bar one or two people. I don't think the majority of us take ourselves seriously enough to let it bother me. I mean,
honestly, if you guys see me and ever meet me in real life, you'll know I can't take myself seriously. No. Look at me.
I do have my moments, but I like to think I'm quickly back down to earth. But particularly now, I just don't really care what people think. So even if someone even if people have a malicious intent to something they might say to me, I don't really care anymore. And I think that's sort of the point is, you know, just don't take it seriously.
I'm getting there. I mean, it's relatively well timed for this podcast in that as we record this, last night I had a bit of a meltdown. Someone made a joke.
Yeah.
But the context of it is that this person always seems to go in extra hard on me.
Yeah, they do.
And I don't think that's an unfair observation. I think I've discussed it with a couple of people, and it's not just mine, because I'm very well aware that I could easily see it as that way, and it might not be the case.
No, but I will attest to the fact that that is the case.
And so every now and then, it's through sheer persistence. Every now and then, the jokes keep getting made at this level that's completely unnecessary, and not fitting with the tone of the rest of the joke that's being made.
Yeah.
And I had a moment. I reacted. I didn't react publicly. I didn't give them the satisfaction.
No.
I mean, a little bit, but not a lot. It was more of a private.
I actually thought your response was alright, to be fair.
I sort of ducked away and had a private huff and a puff. But, and this is where I find myself clashing with the whole thing of we should be able to tell jokes. I believe in that, and it also comes back to something we've mentioned before a little bit of freedom of speech versus freedom of consequence.
Yeah.
But this is the thing it comes back to where I'm clashing is I do believe that we should be able to say anything, but at the same time, I've never, you've got to be very careful because we don't get to tell people that they're not offended.
Yeah.
When someone gets offended, it's the same thing when someone gets hurt. If someone says, I'm hurt by what you said, you don't get to say, well, you shouldn't have been because I clearly only meant it as a joke. But
they found it offensive.
You don't get to say that. That's how they feel.
Yeah.
That's how they feel.
100%.
You do not get to tell them
which was why
that they're wrong to feel.
When I was pulled up by a mutual friend about what I had said,
well,
my initial reaction was anger because I was like, well, that clearly wasn't how I intended it. But it's regardless of what we're saying in terms of people shouldn't take things to heart, because the person who was the end of the joke I was making does find it offensive, that is their right to feel that way, and it's not my right to have the power to offend them. So that's why I apologised, and I then actually subsequently deleted those messages.
Absolutely.
Because I don't have the right to decide if the person who is at the end of the joke is offended. I do, however, feel if someone else is offended on their behalf, I can disregard that.
That's where it gets really, close. It gets really interesting, because...
Now, what I said was quite on the line in terms of if people actually knew what I said, you would probably instantly go, no, that's not an acceptable thing to say.
No, but
out
given
of the context of our group, what's been said in the past, and even by the person who was the target of the joke.
With regards to the subject of the joke that you made, or the material of the joke that you made, I can remember a few years ago when the incident in question happened.
And it was a big joke.
And I'll tell you now, I remember sitting on a rooftop in a bar, because again, I'm cultured, it's rooftop bars, New York, it's my kind of scene, with four other people, and just saying...
Pretty sure I was
you undoubtedly were, the most shockingly... Oh my god, the things that were said on that rooftop were unbelievably harsh. And one of the people that we know, his partner was also there, and she was sitting there being like, you can't say this, you absolutely cannot say this. But the guy in question, again, was there, and he was like, yeah, fine. He's like, I've said this kind of stuff to you guys all the time. He's like, just go for it.
Yeah. I mean, in a group context, I'm a firm believer in, if you're willing to give it, you have to be able to receive it.
No.
And that's one thing I've always prided myself on, is that if I do... But again, it depends on the tone of it, obviously. If it's been done with malice, I will then have an issue with it, especially if what I've said had no malicious intent.
No, but if you're going toe for toe with someone, and they make a comment, and you make an unbelievably similar comment, but it's just they're the target rather than you, and then they turn it around, because we've both experienced this with people. I experienced it actually last night with someone who I was speaking to, who I used to work with, and they were they used to give it all the time about things you couldn't even control, by the way, like my height. Another guy that I work with who's bald, and yet someone made a joke once about his flatulence.
Okay.
But not the flatulence where he was doing it, like he would walk into the most public area, do it, and then leave. And the joke was kind of about that. And he got really quiet for the day, and he was like, I just thought what you said earlier was just like out of order, it was a bit too far, and it wasn't funny. And it was like, hold on a minute, and the guy sort of said like, hold on a minute, so you can make jokes about things that we can't control. Never mind you can just make jokes, but you can make jokes about things we can't control.
And that's fine.
But you can't take that joke about that. And it's like, no, if you're going to give it, you have to take it.
Yeah.
You have to.
See, obviously in the group situation, I completely agree with you. But obviously when taking it back to comedians, and when they're making jokes, 9 times out of 10, there's no right of reply for a member of the audience.
No.
Or for anyone out there.
It's a very fair point.
But that being said, if I was following Jimmy Carr on Twitter, for example, and he said something outrageous, I'd be like, it's just Jimmy Carr, it's what he does.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm sure.
And I've done that when Frankie Boyle was in that period. I did the same thing. I was like, I don't find that funny. It's just trying to offend.
Yeah.
But that's who he is, and every now and then he
Which
will
is
say
fine.
something that
so
I like,
then
so that's fine.
What I did is what I advised to everyone during this point. It's just unfollow. Don't be a part of it.
No, and here's
which is fine. I appreciate other people might find what he said funny. I don't understand why you would, but they might do.
Here's one last
and that's
one
their right.
that I want to talk about. Sarah Silverman, American comedian. Now she does this bit in her live show where, and I'll tell you the joke, where she uses the N-word.
Yeah.
And she says the reason she uses the N-word is because the whole point is to find the most offensive, shocking word that she can find.
Yeah.
Because that's the point of the joke. And you'll sort of see that. I'll get into that. But she went on a late night TV chat show. They said you can't say the N-word. So she said, okay, what can I say? And she ran through them, and the word chink replaced it. Now I can't say the C word in place of chink because that means something completely different. Whereas the N word, I can say the N word. We all know what that means.
Yeah.
I don't need to say the actual word. Now, the joke is that she's talking about being elected into jury duty service.
Okay.
She says, now I don't want to do jury duty service, so my friend says, why don't you say something racist to get out of it? And she says, yeah, that's what I'll do. She says, but I don't want to come across racist, so I'll try and be racist without being racist. So she said, she got in front of the judge and she said, you know what? I have a prejudice. She says, I fucking love those chinks, man. Now, the whole point of the joke is it ever okay to say a derogatory term and not have it be racist?
Yeah.
And the answer is unequivocally no. That's the point of the joke, is no matter what context you use it in, it's offensive. So therefore, should that joke be offensive? Because for me, the point of the joke is racism, it's not race.
Yeah. She's not actually being racist towards people of Asian descent. She's making a joke about racism.
She's making a joke about the people being racist, and saying it's never okay to use those words because...
Well, yeah, it's a bit like someone saying, oh, I love those gays.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Or, you know, I love those... I apologise for the use of the word, but he's saying, I love those fags.
Yeah.
You're like, well...
That's great, but you're being offensive.
That's the thing of saying, that's really offensive. You're going, why? I said I love them. You're like, well, the point is, you use that term.
Well, it was like,
that's the joke.
Yeah, it was like...
And I think that joke, because it's a kind of meta joke, because even though she's mentioning the words in the joke, the whole joke is about the use of those words, and whenever you mention them it's offensive. I think those jokes should absolutely be allowed and encouraged.
I agree, yeah. Yeah, I think that's quite a funny joke.
I think it's quite a funny joke.
And it's a joke that is on the edge.
But it's about what it's about when you actually think about what the joke is about.
It's a joke about racism.
It's a joke about racism.
It's not a racist joke.
You think you know when people hear it, I think they think the initial thing is the target of that is Chinese people, it's black people.
Yeah.
No. The target of the joke is the racist. It's the person in front of Jewish people. She's the target of the joke. It's like self-deprecating in a way. She's the subject of it. She's the one in the narrative.
But that's the thing. People can't differentiate, and that's the whole issue. The blunt or the crux of the issue. Get my words twisted today. Is that people just can't differentiate.
No.
And also people take themselves far too seriously.
Yeah.
I think that's the other issue.
Yeah.
I think personally, life's too bloody short to get offended at everything you hear and read. And again, even if you do get offended by something, you don't have to engage with it. That's the whole point. The amount of times I've had someone have a dig at me through a joke, and you can tell it's not a joke as it's intended.
I work with
I'll just disengage with it.
I work with a guy who's constantly making jokes that I don't like, I don't feel comfortable with, but I'm well aware and I'm able to read into it and know that there's no intent behind it. The intent is good humoured and good natured. I don't necessarily like the jokes, and so I just let them slide, I ignore them. If he ever says anything that I think crosses a line,
then you'll pull him up on it.
I'll pull him up on it and I'll say, look, not that.
Yeah.
Anything but that.
Yeah.
But again, and I can say anything but that because I just don't engage. I'm not bothered about it. And I think what it comes down to is if you're going to take anything away from this, remember this: freedom of speech versus freedom of consequences. You are able, in our opinions, not in the eyes of the law or the world or Twitter, but in our opinion, you are able to say a joke about whatever you want. But if someone comes to you and says to you, look, personally, not on behalf of someone else, unless it's like a partner or a family member or something they're really close to, someone they work, a community they work with.
Yeah.
But if they just come to you and say, on a personal level, I was offended by what you said, then acknowledge their offence, understand it and apologise for it, but mean the apology.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean your joke wasn't necessarily funny. It doesn't mean
it
you
shouldn't have, for them.
and it doesn't mean you shouldn't have said it. It just means it wasn't for them, and you have to. But as long as you acknowledge that it wasn't for them, don't dismiss them because it was a joke.
Yeah.
Say whatever joke you want to say, but understand and accept that some people may genuinely take personal offence.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest problems I've found over the years with some of the people we know, in terms of these sort of things, is the lack of willingness to actually have a discussion. Do you know what I mean? So, like, although I was fine in the end with a mutual friend messaging me about the joke I'd made, I would have far rather it had come from the person it might have offended. Just for me, because then, I don't know, it gives more...
Here's the thing, in my personal experience...
I then get more respect for someone.
Anytime I have taken offence to things, and it's not necessarily jokes, sometimes it's whatever, anytime I have had an issue with things, anytime I've discreetly, and as long as you do it kind of discreetly and respectfully and pull them to, I don't go, listen, dick, what are you doing? You put them to one side and you say, look, about what you said, I know that you meant it like this, but actually I really didn't feel comfortable with it and I'd prefer it if we could avoid it.
Yeah.
My experience is that sometimes initially they do react, but over a couple of days, sometimes in the immediate initial period when you say it, sometimes over a couple of days, but nearly all of them eventually are really cool about it. They're like, they get it, they understand, and they're sort of like, okay, they're glad you had that conversation, and they do make a genuine effort to remove or include whatever it is you've been affected by.
Like a good way to look at jokes sometimes is, for example, I lost my dad last year. Now, anyone who knew my dad, he was a very funny bloke, very No,
definitely.
For me, like now, if someone was to make a joke, I wouldn't be offended if they took the piss out of my dad. He was a very self-deprecating person. He was a very funny person, had a very good sense of humour. That wouldn't bother me. If someone made a joke about him dying, however, that's a very different way of looking at it. It's the same.
And I remember.
It's the same person. It's a different.
I can remember being really unsure when your dad died. It was about. I'm not sure it was quite at the funeral stage, or it might have been just after, but it was in the first couple of months.
Yeah.
And I remember you said something or you did something, and I remember without thinking, because we're so used to having this like level where you can say anything.
Yeah.
Without thinking, I remember saying something to the effects of like, mate, I'm glad your dad's dead, because if he could see you now, and as soon as I said it, I was like, fuck, what have I done? Like that's buttons.
But then again, that goes back to you're not taking the piss out of the fact my dad's died.
No.
You're taking the piss out of what my dad would think about what I've just done or said. That's a different thing. Do you know what I mean?
And luckily you responded pretty well with it, and it was like.
I think you went, fuck, was that too
as soon as I said it, I was like, fuck me, what have I done?
But again, I think, going back to what we've been saying about jokes, I think...
Because I'm not saying, just going on, because I wasn't saying, because even though I said the phrase, I'm glad your dad's dead, I don't
That's not what you meant, no.
I'm glad your dad's dead.
No, but again, because we've got a certain level of understanding that most of the time doesn't need speaking of.
No.
I don't need that clarification.
No, thank you.
I know there's no malicious intent. However, if it was someone I might not be as close with, maybe I would have taken it differently. I don't know. I'd like to think I wouldn't have.
No, you might have. You absolutely may have.
I might have. But it's one of them things. But yeah, I think there's definitely a line that can be crossed. I mean, like I said, I wouldn't be offended by someone taking the piss out of my dad because he's passed away. But I would be, if they were like said something disgusting about it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's definitely lines that can be crossed, I think.
Yeah, I mean, just in terms of your dad's funeral, I remember, and this is the thing, I think in all the funerals I've been to, because I've been to a few, I'm cultured, we've established that.
Nothing cultured about having had people die in your life.
You rock up in a suit with people you've barely met like once
I didn't even
before.
wear a suit to my dad's funeral.
No, you didn't. But here's the thing, in all the funerals I've been to, they're generally quite joyous occasions. I know that sounds odd, but it's everyone getting together and remembering the memory of the person. And it's all jokes, it's all things about, and the amount of times that people do joke about, like, oh fucking hell, I'm glad they're all gone, because like, what were they made of this, and what were they made, that's so much fun of it. But it's about, again, I think it just comes back to, just be very aware if you're going to make a joke of the audience you're making, and also the timing of it. If you're going to make a joke about, suicide bombers or something, has there just been an incident in the last day or two, the Manchester bombing things, if it's only just happened, be aware of what you're saying about it, and again, be aware of the subject of your joke. Is it actually picking on the culture of suicide bombers, or is it picking on the families and the...
Yeah. I mean, for me, I have, and as you have, thought about the idea of maybe trialling a bit of stand-up and things like that, and there's actually... It's not even a joke, it's just an experience. The day my dad died, there was something that happened at the hospital, I'm not going to go through it all now because of time, but that was horrific in the moment, but when I describe it now, looking back, it's fucking hilarious. And I said it in a group therapy session, and everyone was in tears of laughter with me telling this story, and even me and my sister now, who shared in that moment with me, and even my mum who was there, looking back at it, it's fucking hilarious. It was horrific in the moment, but and I actually thought to myself, if I did stand up,
you talk about it,
I would probably do that story.
But it goes back to the Greeks always used to say, comedy is tragedy plus time.
Yeah.
Imagine if Twitter existed back then. Everyone being, I find that really offensive. The tragedy is not something you can joke about. Absolutely is.
Yeah.
With the right audience, with the right time, it absolutely is.
100%, I agree.
Freedom of speech, freedom of consequence, that's all it comes down to.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good place to end it. So thank you again, everyone, for listening.
Because we have to end it, even though you don't want us to end it.
Yeah, well, I don't want to end it. We like rabbiting on. But yeah, so we hope you've enjoyed it. As always, you can find us on Twitter at Swords Crossing. On Facebook, just search Crossing Swords. And we also have a email account, which is crossingswords19@gmail.com.
Let us know what you think about this subject and this situation. Keep the conversation going. That's what we want. Keep the conversation going.
Yeah.
At us at Twitter and just keep talking about it.
Yeah.
We want to know
Tell us what you think.
And if you have any ideas for podcast episodes, send them our way.
Hit us up.
Guys, pleasure as always.
Love you. Mwah.